Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. And now, let's start the show. Hello, guys. Welcome to the Bomb Squad. I'm Andrew Hada, coming to you from a video screen. Like I said last time, we are transitioning to videos just because YouTube is claiming a lot of reviews that use movie clips, and since we only use movie clips, we had to switch. And I think like we'll sometimes use movie clips once YouTube like calms down and the movie studios stop claiming everything. But for now, let's try this out. See how you like it. Welcome to the Bomb Squad. We have a special edition today for a new movie. Also, we have the whole team back together. Um, and the movie we're reviewing is the 2022 Hellraiser film that just came out on Hulu. It's directed by David Bruckner, who did The Night House, which I added on my 20 end of the year list. And it stars Jamie Clayton as the new Cenobite priest. I guess priestess. I don't know if they have gender roles in hell, but I'm gonna assume that they do. So, William, will you give us a brief rundown of Hellraiser 2022?
Yeah. So it's about a girl who is an alcoholic and possibly addicted to other substances who is trying to live the clean life, and she lives with her brother, and she meets this guy who has her break into a storage unit, and they steal a mysterious puzzle box that then begins to wreak havoc on everyone that she loves while she desperately tries to solve the mystery of the Cenobites and get back everyone that she thinks she may or may not have killed.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, yeah. And also, we did try to do this yesterday, but we ran into some technical difficulties. That's why this seems a lot more rehearsed than normal, just because we did it like three times.
Yeah.
We even tried to do it on The Voice, and I was running out of time because I had an event to get to, and I was like rushing, and I was like, and then it's directed by Jamie Clayton, and it has David, and I was like getting things wrong. But anyway, so what did you guys think of this new Hellraiser film?
I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I thought, yeah, just it was pretty gross, and I feel like Clive Barker's writing style is extremely disgusting. I feel like the visuals kind of really tried to get to the level that his writing can get to,
Right.
and I appreciated that. I don't know if I was ever like terrified, but I liked how they did the mystery, and I was really I don't know. I wanted to know what was going to happen the whole time. I was never bored, which is always a really good sign. So I'd say I gave it a pretty positive review.
Joshua?
Yeah, I'd say I don't know. It was all right. It was. I guess I haven't seen the original in many years, and I do remember there was this like evocativeness in the original, where this one felt a little bit more like, oh yeah, this is like what you'd expect. It actually reminded me a lot of the 2010's Evil Dead, which is also about like a recovering
Yeah.
like drug addicts trying to get over it, and then it kind of ties into the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of similarity there for sure.
Right.
yeah,
And I kind of feel that, yeah, it did have a very like early 2010s feel to it where it spends a lot of time setting up the characters and then it kind of gets rid of them one by one like very quickly,
Yeah.
where sometimes you're like, why did they set this up? I will say I did like the way the Cenobites looked in this one. I like because there's a way that the thing that's cool about Hellraiser is that they don't look like demons, but they do, like if you were to draw like a stereotypical demon, it wouldn't look like anything in any of the Hellraiser movies. But if
right.
you were to show someone and be like, "Is this a demon?" They'd be like, "Yep, that's what a demon looks
Absolutely.
like."
Yeah.
And they kind of continued that where nothing really looked unoriginal, like it didn't look derivative of demon mythology, but they all looked super cool and super like deadites. And I like that they carried that over.
Yeah, and everybody was pretty unique. Like they all had a similar color scheme of
Yeah,
just gross flesh, but I feel like
right.
every Cenobite was like, "Oh, there's that one, or there's that one," and like the way that they moved, and I like the way that they did their voices too. I thought was like really scary. Like it kind of had like the lady from Us, like the underworld
Oh yeah,
version of the
yeah.
main character, like how she kind of had that sort of croaky voice. Like I thought I liked how they brought that into the Cenobites this time, like how they spoke in this sort of like like just I don't know, it wasn't growling, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like
It's
nice.
like
It was just
echoey
a
kind of.
voice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it kind of felt like every time they talked, they were in a big room, even if they were like right in front of you and it was like
Yeah,
outside. So
totally.
it gave it like another worldly feel without, again, like just a little thing.
Yeah, yeah, like a lot of presence. Yeah, even if they're just in a playground, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I even like the way that, I mean, all movies should be more diverse. And I understand like the original Hellraiser was super like low budget and it was made in the 80s, but it was cool to see like I think this is the first time we've seen like an Asian Cenobite and an African American one, and it was
oh
just
yeah,
like it made it feel like it opened up the world a lot more, where the original Hellraiser feels very like UK-ish, and this one
sure.
felt like, oh, these guys have been traveling like everywhere, like they can get anyone that they want. And I think that
right.
that really, just like that little thing kind of like added a lot,
Yeah, and it kind of makes it more mysterious too. 'Cause it's like if you just have
yeah.
a bunch of like white dudes being Cenobites, it's like, well, this could have been from anywhere. But yeah, it's like having
Yeah,
like, a diverse group. It's like, did they choose them? Is
right,
everyone
right,
just kind of
right.
fucked up all over the
Yeah, it's
world?
interesting.
Like,
Well, you
how did
can
this
kind of
happen?
see how it happens too, so
Right,
it's
Yeah.
right.
interesting.
And I think like that's a good point because it's subtly like I think in my head, and it never says this, and I think it even changes it with the sequel. But the first time I saw the Cenobites in like the first one, I assumed that they were always a group. That like even as humans, they were a group of like friends or whatever who all got into the limit configuration and turned together. But having
Yeah,
like so many different people of different backgrounds, it's kind of like it made it feel like, oh no, these are just like they'll just grab whoever they want and turn them into like this demon type
right,
skinless
right.
monster.
Yeah,
See, now I do want like a prequel where they're all like teens and they're like, "Hey, stop clowning around, Pinhead,"
yeah.
but just like as a
Don't call
term
me
of
that.
affection.
Yeah,
They're like that guy's always chattering.
yeah. You know, I'm sensitive about my teeth.
But yeah, it was good.
I
And like, yeah, I would say we'll see I'll talk about my main problem with it. But I think one of the things that I kind of was disappointed with in this movie was that like I didn't feel really connected to the main character Riley. Like she's a drug addict, but she's also kind of, well, she's pretty, I don't know if she's selfish or if like the actions of the movie just kind of made her feel selfish. And it kind of comes together at the end, but like I was never super like I was never like, oh, is Riley gonna make it? It's like I kind of hope Riley dies.
Yeah, I think that they like because like her whole problem is like her addictions, and that causes all kinds of problems with her personal life. But it's like the main point of the story was just her trying to get her brother back, and it wasn't really about her addiction. So it kind of felt
Right.
like whereas like Josh was comparing it to Evil Dead, like that whole movie is about her trying to kick the habit, whereas this
That
one
is true.
finishes it, and like she never really works on it in the movie. Which I'm not saying that anyone has to, but like I think that just to bring that up and to not really talk about it did kind of make it seem like so she just has problems, but that's not
Right.
the problem we're going to really address in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point because if you had taken out the fact that she was addicted to drugs and she was just living with her brother, nothing really changes, you know?
Right. Like she could have just been
Yeah,
like bad at getting
they
a
kind of
job
do
or
Yeah.
yeah, like she just has to have a conflict. That's true, and then at the end, like realize something about herself, which
yeah.
could happen
Yeah.
with anything. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's kind of funny because just like the original Hellraiser has elements of this kind of like like a lot of people, and I think Clive Barker has even talked about how it is an allegory for drugs. You know, like the
Yeah.
Cenobites, their main thing is like, oh, they're gonna like they mix pleasure and pain, so like
Mhm.
it's to such an extreme that you can't tell the difference, and that's why
Right.
people chase that box because they know like as much as it's going to hurt them it's also going to give them this euphoria that they've never experienced before, and so the
Yeah.
drug allegory is right there, you know.
Mhm.
And so like it's weird to not only dismiss it but to dismiss it when you have such a perfect way to like examine it, you know.
Right. Right. And like I've read I was reading the Hellbound Heart before you told me that we were going to do this episode, and so I stopped reading it because I didn't want to read it before watching the movie. But even like in the first, like it starts off with kind of like a prologue sort of thing, and it's this guy describing like just what you're talking about, and he's just like, I've got this fucking box, and if I go into it, it's going to give me like the most pleasure I could possibly have, and I'll transcend humanity. And it's just like total, like, it's all about hedonism, like you're saying.
Right.
And so, yeah, like, it definitely starts off with that character in this one, but yeah, just like really never goes there, even though there is, like you were saying, this really rich material that's just rife for that. They just kind of, yeah, they just didn't really care in the end. They're just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. And then like something and there's just like it just takes a lot of weird turns. I think one of the things that you kind of mentioned yesterday was the relationship between the main character Riley and the because it's Riley lives with her brother and then they also live with the brother's boyfriend.
Hmm.
And you're talking about how good that relationship is.
Yeah, yeah. I liked that one a lot because like the older brother for the main character is like super controlling, and he's just like, you're trying to get better. Like, where are you going out at night? Just like always like on her ass. And then her brother's boyfriend, Colin, is just like, maybe you should be nice to her, like just give her some space, like just trying to play the total peacekeeper. But then something happens, and the main character's brother, Colin's boyfriend, disappears, and so they're all trying to find him. And Colin is like trying to be patient with his boyfriend's sister, and it's just like, okay, well, do you remember anything? Like,
Right.
do you fucking remember anything at all?
Yeah.
And he like just like loses his patience with her. But like, that's just such an interesting relationship, like the
Hmm.
sibling of your significant other, because it's like it's not like their parent, but
Right.
like you kind of like try to impress them a little bit, and like you want them to like be your friend, and like you want to be like an ally to them. And I don't know, I just feel like that dynamic was probably the best dynamic in the movie, and it kind of ended up carrying like the emotional heart of everything like towards the end, like those two. But I thought
Yeah.
that was a really great relationship in the film.
Yeah, I agree, and it's something I hadn't even thought of. Especially there's that scene because they get in a big fight because Riley comes home drunk, the brother and Riley, and like she's like, oh, like she's kind of doing that addict thing where she's like, oh, you just want to judge me, like you just want to feel better than me, and so the brother's like, get the fuck out of here, you know. And then when she goes outside because she's like, okay, I'm gonna leave, she goes to leave, and the brother's boyfriend is out there smoking, and he's telling her like kind of like don't go, like you guys are just in a fight, like you're both gonna
Yeah.
regret this in the morning. And I thought that was a good scene because the way the brother or the boyfriend plays it, he's like he knows that they're both gonna regret in the morning, like it's not like he's gonna like overdo it, like stop her and like be like no stay here, like he
Right.
knows his boundaries. And I think that
Yeah.
that's such a rare thing to see, you know, like this relationship between the
Yeah.
brother's boyfriend and the
Yeah,
sister.
it's like had she not opened a portal to Hellbox, he was
Right.
right. Things would have just worked out.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that was good
Barring that little
advice.
detail,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because then she takes off, and then the brother does go look for her. So it's like, yeah, of course he was going to go look for her. He was literally just being mad and kind of like, because there's that thing where, like, well, with my siblings, like sometimes you say shit in the heat of the moment just to piss your sibling off. You don't like
Yeah.
really mean it, and then like you guys know eventually it's gonna. And so like as the like boyfriend or the spouse of that. Like, how do you even get involved when it's like, well, you guys are like being just real mean to each other because you've known each other your whole lives, you know?
Right.
Can
I'm
I,
trying to get
can I
some
say
fucking
like
sleep. Like this whole
look
goddamn
look
movie.
at
Yeah.
look at it from the boyfriend's or the brother's perspective, because for the brother, his sister is like a constant relapsing drug addict, and
Yeah.
she's dating a scumbag from AA, which you're not even supposed to do,
Right.
right?
Right,
Right.
right.
He's like, oh no, she is like a disaster, like she needs to change her life. So it's like,
Yeah.
his, obviously he's being mean, and it's like you shouldn't try to kick her out or whatever, but it's like at the same time he's making good points.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
not only that, but like this is like one of the first few times she's gone to AA, and she immediately finds like a dude to bone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Literally like, and just knowing stuff about AA, you're not even supposed to like try any kind of relationship within the first year. Definitely not the first day, and definitely not with someone in the meeting.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You
Like they show up at
also,
the apartment and there's just like a huge bong sitting on the table.
oh
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I
like
don't know
they're
if that's
both
off
not
limits for
even
you, but it should be. I don't know.
Yeah.
just not even trying. I mean, I do know most like recovered addicts that, like go to a place where they're like, okay, I have like my one thing, like I
Right.
knew a guy who was like a recovered heroin addict who's like drank red wine every day. He's like, all right, this I can manage, and it's like, all right, that's
Yeah.
fine.
You know.
Well, and like one of our friends who's a recovering addict, he like vapes constantly.
Oh
He
yeah.
never puts it away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And well, and it's funny because like you were saying that his spouse, they smoke weed every day. And so it is that kind of weird thing, especially with living with someone who's an addict. It's like, do you put it away just because they're around, or like, do you
Right.
yeah,
not try to ostracize them? So yeah, but I mean, yeah, but Riley is just kind of a mess.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so,
She's, but like, okay, we failed to mention because there's actually four people living in that apartment.
Right. Naomi.
There's a fourth roommate who was clearly added later into the movie because they needed one more kill, because she
Yeah.
does and says nothing at any point. She's
Right.
just like, okay, let's go, guys.
she
Yeah,
shows that
she scolds Trevor once, the boyfriend, for wanting to drink. She's like, "We don't drink when Riley's around," but it's like, well, she fucking does. I don't know.
You could see the
Oh,
part where they like get to like the part of the script, they're like, well, who dies now? It's like, well, let's just add one more roommate and just have her
Yeah.
having been there from the beginning.
okay. So here's a weird scene that I don't know if anyone else found this weird. So like we're introduced to Riley when she's like having sex with this dude, and then they go outside to like the kitchen area, and everyone there is just making dinner, and
Oh yeah.
they're like, "Oh yeah, we're making dinner." And I was like, and then they're like, "Oh, we heard you guys all boning," but it's like, what time is it supposed to be?
I
Were
know.
they boning at like 6 in the afternoon?
Yeah, it seems like it's like
Yeah.
9 or 10 p.m.
Yeah, because I thought it was like the middle of the night, and so he's kind of like sneaking out, but then he runs into everyone, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're making pasta. You can stay." And I was like, "What is
Yeah,
it,
there's plenty.
Riley? You freak." Yeah, I guess maybe
Yeah.
just
That was weird. I was also like, are you guys like trying to go to sleep and they've kept you up, or
right.
I mean, they're talking. Okay.
Yeah, it was very ambiguous.
Yeah.
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 So eventually, Riley's boyfriend Trevor is his name. They're like, "Oh, we should go. Like, I used to do this job for this guy. We should go check it out." And so they find the puzzle box, the
Yeah, they're
lament.
like, oh, this cargo's been sitting there for years or something,
Yeah.
right? Like, no
Yeah.
one's ever gonna come get it. Let's go steal this rich guy.
I
We also kind of skipped over the Serbia like prologue at the
Yeah,
beginning.
well, I'll get
Yeah.
there
Oh
when I
yeah. Oh
start
yeah.
my
Okay.
complaints. But and so they steal it, and so they steal the box, and Riley solves it. Well, and like before we start, like, the basic premise of the Hellraiser franchise, all of them, is that there's this puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. It's essentially a portal to call Cenobites or to get you to hell. And if you solve it, that's when they come, because that's kind of like their calling card. Like if you solve it, you're essentially saying, "I'm invested in this enough for them to come," and that's when the Cenobites come. And so in this one, it's still the same. There's a big difference. I guess we can get into right now. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, because in this one you have to you have to go through like 4 tiers and kill someone at every tier to like
Right.
give to
Yeah,
them.
a different
But
sacrifice.
I was that was not from the original, right? Like in the original, it's just kind of like, oh, however you solve it, that's like good luck. Like
Yeah.
something's gonna happen. Yeah,
You
yeah,
solve
yeah,
it and then you get a meeting with them.
yeah.
But
Then it's like hope they don't kill you. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
see that's my first thing is that okay, so in the original um you put together the box and then they come. But the thing that always intrigued me about the Cenobites is that they don't just kill, they're not like Michael Myers or Jason or Freddy who'll just kill you for no reason. Like in
yeah,
the second one, there's the main doctor. It's like it takes place in a psychiatric hospital, and there's a doctor who's trying to solve the box, and he gets one of his like mute autistic patients to solve it. And then the Cenobites come and they look at her and they're like, "Oh yeah, she solved it, but she's not the one who called us." And they walk past her to go get the
mm,
doctor. And so to me, that was always like the most interesting thing. Like they're essentially giving you what you want. You just don't know that what you want is bad. And
right.
that again, it goes back to the drug thing. So everyone who solves the box is asking for it. And if you're not asking for it and you happen to solve the box accidentally, well then the Cenobites are probably just gonna come and notice that you don't really want to and just leave.
Yeah, they're
But
looking for
in
a party. They're looking for a good time.
yeah, exactly. Like they're gonna like you're if you're solving the box, you want this pleasure, pain, sex fantasy that they're
you're
gonna give you.
down to
Yeah.
clown
And
essentially.
so in this one, they've changed it so anyone who solves a box, it like a dagger shoots out the first time, and it draws blood, and the lament configuration takes that blood, and then it either kills whoever drew the blood from. And so it
Yeah,
opens up with like this guy meeting this other guy, and then he like makes him solve the box, and then it cuts him, and then he gets taken by the Cenobite. So the rich guy, who's the Voight character, so that he can talk to the Cenobites. And I think like I understand why they did it to kind of like give Riley this like countdown type will she or won't she or who's she going to choose. But I think it kind of takes away from the Cenobites that now they're just like, oh, we'll kill whoever, you know. Because
yeah,
what if I like get the Cenobite box, solve it, don't stab myself, and then just go like stab like a guy on death row or something, or like
Well, that's like what happens like a lot. Like it'll be someone solves it, then just stabs someone else with it.
yeah.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
I kind of feel that makes the Cenobites more of a weapon than their own thing, you know.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Because
It makes
later
them seem a little bit more
she
malicious.
accidentally
Hmm.
like tricks one with it by stabbing it. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which is like that was kind of a cool thing to happen because it's kind of like once you're in on what like the change, it is kind of cool how they like explored it as much as they could. I just
hmm,
kind of thought that it was not, I didn't like the change. I wish I had kept it as cuz to me like I've always and the later sequels do this too, like turning the Cenobites into just monsters. And to
yeah.
me it makes it way more interesting. I don't know how it is in the book, but I assume it's very similar or from what you've read so far.
Yeah. It pretty much what happens in what I've read so far is a guy just solves it, and then they tell him everything. Like, yeah, we're gonna give you some fucked up sensations, and then like this goddess Cenobite is like sitting on a pile of heads, and then the guy screams, and then it's like, and then this other guy was off somewhere else, and it's like, oh, so yeah, it's definitely not like slasher like how it kind of turns into it. It seems very much like how the first movie was, where it's like you got to work for this puzzle, and like you're probably some crazy motherfucker who's still
Right.
maybe a little curious whenever you see the lady sitting on a pile of heads,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
it seems more in line with like how the original movie was.
Yeah, I took it as like kind of like a Faustian, like they're kind of preying on your intentions, not
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
who touched the lever, you know, like I thought it was very
right.
like, oh, they trick you into like taking a deal that you're actually not gonna
Yeah.
Yeah,
enjoy. Yeah.
Like you're asking for a complete, like the ultimate pleasure, and
hmm,
they're giving you that. But in ultimate pleasure, they also like take off your skin because they find pleasure in pain. And
right.
so,
Yeah.
Like they it's like semantically they use the word sensation
right.
instead of pleasure. It's like you're
Well, it's
gonna feel
like
something.
people. I've heard people say like, oh, like waxing, like getting like waxed or something is super pleasurable. Like it hurts, but in a really good way. And
Yeah.
it's like this is
Mm,
like the extreme version. I've
Right.
never waxed, so I
flame,
can't
yeah.
say for
Yeah.
sure. But
It's kind of like that scene in The Dark Knight where the scarecrow's like, I told you I was gonna take you places. I didn't say it was gonna be places you wanted to go, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so then the rest of the movie is her because she solves the box and then she doesn't cut herself, and that's when her brother shows up. Or no, she talks to the Cenobites and they're telling her
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you got to choose someone," and she chooses her brother, but it was like,
It was by mistake because
it,
he was just trying to help her and it got
mhm.
like
And then
cut on
he
it.
Yeah.
gets stabbed, and then they take him, and so the whole movie is her trying to like solve it more so that she can. Because if you solve it so many times, you get to talk to the Leviathan, which is their god, and
Hmm.
then you can get a wish granted, which again is like a little bit another change. In the original, you do get to see Leviathan if you try hard enough, but it's not like the end goal. It's just kind of like another thing they're gonna do to you. You know? It's kind of how like Freddy will take you down to the boiler room even though you don't really want to go. It's just like another place for him to hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually the vibes will lead you there. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And like it's the weird thing where like so the whole movie is her like solving it and then she has to send someone else and like there's a cool scene where they go talk to like this lawyer of the guy who originally owned it and then she's like been freaked out 'cause she's in a hospital and then she gets stabbed and you see like her like because you get dizzy and you kind of like feel drugged out and then like the walls start changing into like the hell walls, you know, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's when
some of
they
the
come
like the
out.
shifting environments were cool where
And
like
I
it would like when
heard,
he
Yeah.
was in the bathroom and saw the hallway open up, I
yeah,
was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's
In
pretty
the
sweet.
van.
Yeah.
and there the best one is when the roommate, whose name is I think Cannon Fodder, when she
Yeah.
gets picked, and they're moving in a van, and
Yeah.
like they're
Oh
you
yeah,
see
they're
the
trying to get him.
yeah,
Yeah.
you see the back of the van, and like the red lights are just like making it look like hell in the background already. And then the like she looks to her friends, and they're further away because like
Yeah.
now
That
there's a
was so
long
good.
stone hallway, and
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cool, like the way it looked.
See, I like that because they're driving in it and it took them a while to like get a fix on them. Like it would keep
Hmm.
opening on the road as they were leaving. I was like, oh man, if you were on a train, could you just like
Keep
permanently
going.
trick them?
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
they eventually lock on.
Yeah. What if you were on the bullet train?
Yeah.
Yeah, or the well, the bullet train stops eventually. Like the train in that Ice movie, Ice World Train movie. I think that's the name of it.
Yeah.
Chill
Ice
factor.
World Train. No, Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer.
Oh. Oh.
I was close.
There's a lot of movies about snow trains, it
I know.
seems.
Ice
Because
Train
there's
Go
also
Fast.
the
I think
Polar
is
Express, yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
just
Awesome.
Um,
CGI Tom Hanks
Yeah.
meeting the
Or Cenobites go
Cenobites.
to die.
Cenobites, yeah.
It's the opposite of
And
that.
I also like that in this one, in the originals, the only people who talk are Pinhead and then his he has like not an assistant, but there's like a female Cenobite who also talks. But they're the only ones. Like everyone else keeps their mouth shut. But in this one, whenever you're dealing with a Cenobite, like the priestess is obviously the worst one, but the other Cenobites will talk to you and kind of taunt you a little bit too. And I thought that that was cool to kind of separate it without like changing too much of it. You know, I thought that, that was a good move.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked. I think the creepiest scene was whenever the lawyer, who's
Yeah.
like the stepmom in that show Succession. I'm pretty sure is the same actress.
Oh, really?
But yeah, whenever she's in the hospital and she gets stabbed, like whenever the Cenobites came for her, like just like chasing her through that like all those hallways and like they're
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
closing in on her, like talking to her like really weirdly. Like
Right.
that was probably the creepiest part. And I watched it in the middle of the day and that it's still I was like, oh fuck. So that was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. No, every time the Cenobites come out, it's super cool. And like again, the way that they take their time for like how you're seeing it, where the lawyer looks to the left, and then there's just like a Cenobite standing there, like, come to us, you know, like
Yeah.
and it's funny because like they keep telling her, like, oh, come on, but they're the ones chasing her. Like
Right.
it kind of like adds that kind of creepiness of like, oh yeah, you're not getting away from this ever, you
Yeah.
know?
We'd take our fucking time, but trust
Right.
me.
Yeah,
Has
like
No,
anyone
the
in any of like the Hellraiser just tried to like light him up with like a gun, like just shoot one?
well, and that's yes. I mean, yeah, they always try to shoot the Hellraisers, especially in the like third and fourth. It doesn't really work.
I assume in the bad ones they try more stuff,
Mhm.
but
yeah.
And then there's like a cool scene, like where the lawyer looks down one of the rows, and there's like a tower that has people's skin and faces on it. It's just spinning. That's a
Oh yeah.
callback to the third one where Pinhead is stuck in that thing and he's spinning the whole time.
Ah,
And I was like, oh, you guys, because I knew they were going to do callbacks to the first two because everyone likes those. But to do callbacks to
Yeah.
the third one, it's like, oh, that's cool. Like, you guys
Like
really
anybody?
are fans. Yeah.
Anybody? And Andrew was like,
It was only me and Derek who we've
it's
had on.
it's like in Batman when they have the giant penny,
Yeah.
behind him. You're like, ah,
yeah,
you're even referencing the dumb shit. Love
Right.
it.
And see, I like the one with the lawyer, but I also really like the one with the roommate because like they catch her, and then she like Pinhead starts telling her like, "Oh, we'll give you whatever you want," and then she says that she wants salvation, and then Pinhead's like, "Oh, we're gonna give you salvation," and then like she takes a
yeah.
pin out of her head and puts it in the girl's throat while she's
Oh
screaming to
yeah,
change her voice and like keep her in a permanent scream, and I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And then despite
yeah.
all of the sequels, I think there's been 10 of them. Pinhead has never
Right.
taken a pin out of his own head.
Yeah.
And
Really?
I thought that was super cool to kind of be like, oh yeah, that is how like it's a cool idea to be like when he creates a Cenobite, he just takes a pin and gives it to you and that's like kind of what starts the transformation. I thought that was like a super smart idea that was like it was one of those ideas that's right in front of your face, you know? And
Hmm.
until they did it in this one, I had never thought of it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
seems so obvious in retrospect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also like that scene because they brought back the Chatterer, who's like the most ridiculous Cenobite because he's the one that doesn't have lips and he just chatters the whole
It's
time.
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
teeth, the wacky teeth.
The
Yeah.
funniest thing about him is
Cool.
it doesn't look like he can open his mouth that wide.
Right.
So they always use him to bite people, and it's like, how are you gonna do it, Chatterer?
He does mess up that guy's arm though.
Yeah. He fucks him
Yeah, he
up.
does.
We should talk about this guy, the guy Trevor,
The
the
boyfriend?
AA boyfriend. That was kind of one of those things. Where it's like I don't know if you quite pulled this off because um, eventually they all end up at like Voight's mansion to like try to
Mhm.
figure out like what the fuck's going on. And
And
it's like a weird mansion.
Voight's been missing since the beginning, by the way.
Yeah. And like in his mansion has like switches where he like would catch people, like wouldn't let them leave and stuff like that. So he has like this whole like setup. And throughout the whole movie, the boyfriend has kind of been the voice of reason. He's like, we should not mess with this. Like,
Right.
don't
Yeah.
even, I'm not even going to touch it, which is like, okay, he's like the smart one, and then
Right.
you find out when they finally like get to this mansion that, oh no, Voight's still alive and they fucked him up real bad and he's trying to like undo it.
Right.
And the boyfriend's been working for him and like his job was to like get people to do it, but it like kind of like if anyone had listened to the boyfriend through the whole movie, none of this would have happened. You know what I mean? Like he's like, no,
Yeah.
don't mess with it, you
Well,
know.
another cool thing that they did because Voight is stuck in the house because if he leaves, the Cenobite like he's made his house into like a spell house, very
Yeah.
13 ghosty. But so
Yeah. Very much like that.
yeah, did you think of that too when you were watching it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the
All those
first thing that
years.
came to my
Yeah.
head. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so the Cenobites can't get in because of the spells, but he can't leave because as soon as he leaves, they're gonna grab him. And
Right.
so he's stuck in the house. And I thought a cool thing was that Voight did not hire him to get other people to do it. He hired him to trick him into doing it himself. But the boyfriend was smart enough to be like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do this." I thought that was
Yeah.
a pretty cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
To like see, it's like I don't know. He's a very like it's very like that should be a very interesting character, but then at the end he's just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna help him still and reluctantly. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a weird like he almost needed a character turn to be like, oh, this is so fucked up. I'm gonna help you now, but
I know. Now that I'm thinking back on it, the ending after everything is revealed, I definitely did lose a little bit of interest. Like I was
Yeah.
still with it and like wanted to see what was going to happen, but it was just kind of like, okay, what? Like nothing is
Right.
really adding up at this point. It's just kind
Yeah.
of
And
probably going to end this, I guess.
right. And not to toot my own horn, but one of the things that I liked about the last ones is that they have the twist and then it kind of gives you the repercussions of that twist throughout the movie. And to me that's the best type of twist, like
Yeah.
with even with the Sixth Sense where the twist kind of comes at the end, he then has to use that information to solve everything.
Right.
And in this one, they have that twist, which was a smart twist. It was like good, but then they don't do anything from like his character should kind of almost completely change from that point, but it really doesn't. There's no like
Yeah.
real difference. And so it just kind of feels like they did it just to do it, and now they're just going to end it the way you thought it was going to end anyway. You know?
Right. Like they should have built
Yeah,
up Voight like a lot more throughout the movie. Like they
Hmm.
definitely mentioned him, but like maybe I don't know if they could have like found like videos of him or something. Whatever,
Yeah,
however they wanted to do it, but like just make him more of a presence so that when you finally see him, you're not like, wait, who? Oh yeah, oh yeah,
yeah. And again, not to talk about 13 Ghosts too much, but
yeah,
13 Ghosts does the same thing, but they
yeah,
do a better job of making you feel that like you understand who the uncle is before he comes back.
yeah, yeah.
And so you're kind of watching it and you're like, oh yeah. Like by the time the uncle comes back, he feels like his own character. Where in
Hmm.
this one, I didn't even realize like Voight was gonna like was still like part of this story. You know, I thought he
Right,
was just like
right.
the intro.
I think that's almost the problem. Is like the uncle in the original like kind of feels like such a presence, like he when he's like skinless and stuff, and like kind of like in the
Hmm.
mix. Whereas like with Voight, he's kind of this like he's like a faceless Serbian mobster, like a mob boss kind of,
Yeah,
who's
Yeah.
like clearly like done horrible things, but there's something kind of generic about him. Like he's just like
right.
kind of a
Yeah.
General
generically
bad guy.
sinister.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
Spider-Man should be busting in to punch him and like give
right.
him to the police before like he got this puzzle box, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it's that thing where um yeah, he just kind of feel well, and that's I think that's the main problem with it is the good Hellraiser movies are movies that feature the Cenobites. Like the first one, it's mainly about Christy, the main character, trying to solve, like trying to say, like figure out what happened to her dad, and also avenge his death, and also stop her evil uncle and his evil ex-wife, who's also her stepmom. There's a lot going on in the
yeah.
original,
Jesus.
but in this one, it just kind of feels like a movie about the Cenobites,
Hmm.
where, and I feel like if they had just kind of like even made Voight like the main character, he could have stayed at the house and maybe he's like, he hires her to do it, or like you get to see more of his evilness.
Right. Yeah, like you're more in on the plan as opposed to it being a twist.
Yeah,
Would
yeah.
have been cool for sure.
And so it just kind of becomes like, and so by the end of it, you've already seen enough of the Cenobites that you don't like, you're just kind of like, okay, well, this is just how it's going to end with like a lot of gore and stuff and them running through corridors.
Also, like whenever they first show Voight, like he's like watching everybody from like his like little hidden hallways inside the
Mhm.
house. Didn't he have like a cage on his head? Also, like 13 Ghosts. And then like whenever they finally show him, like he doesn't have a cage on his head.
I
He definitely looked different in that scene.
it's
Yeah,
like his silhouette though, so I don't know, maybe it was just like a weird
Oh,
lighting. Because
could have
he
been.
has
Yeah,
like a thing in his
his
torso that
torso.
like I think like anytime someone uses the switches in the house, it like switches on, or maybe it does it at random. I couldn't tell,
no,
but
what
like
happened?
Oh
So
yeah.
he has like a bunch of gears where his heart should be because they've taken out his heart and replaced it. So every time the house moves a little bit, it gives Pinhead a little bit more control of it. And so she's able to like touch it for a second, and that's why he like feels pain. At least that's what I thought.
mm,
Because it was every time
that's
it
actually
moved.
that actually is like more clever, because I do kind of I got the sense that like he warded the house to try to stop them entirely, but like he still had the thing in him, so he couldn't like
Yeah.
fully escape.
Yeah.
From what I gathered from it is that he made this house so that he could trap them so that they couldn't do anything to him. But they were still quick enough to at least take his heart out and replace it with a bunch of gears, which looks cool. That looks cool.
Yeah, that was a cool machine.
But he never said, what grinds my gears, which
Yeah.
missed
Yeah.
opportunity.
He
See,
should have just rolled with the
if he was
pain.
more of a character, he would have said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he would have had any personality.
See, and that's why I think it would have been cool, like if he had hired her, even if we saw him hire the boyfriend, and you could have like had him talking, and then you hear like the gears turning in his shirt, as
Yeah, like
opposed to like,
streaks. Yeah.
mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, and they're like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, just heartburn.
Yeah.
He's like Youchies.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. It was like a weird. Why are you hiding this reveal when we don't even really know this guy enough to like care if he's a dead or alive? You know?
Right. And it's like after all the things that they've all seen, like a guy coming out of a hallway isn't gonna like freak out the main character enough to make her leave when she's like investigating the reports. But he's still just like watching her. But it's like he could have just been like, hey, so here's some crazy shit that's been going on. Instead of just like waiting to the end to like reveal himself. I don't know.
Yeah, like
Right,
it could
right,
have like
yeah,
worked out pretty well for him. Yeah.
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 Because
So
even like at the like they've actually like at one point they're like, oh, let's let a Cenobite in so we can get it, and then like that'll be the sacrifice.
Right.
And it gets trapped like halfway in a door, and it's all fucked up. And then he comes out, but instead of stabbing it, he just stabs the boyfriend just out of spite. Like he like doesn't
Yeah.
give a shit.
Be a
You know,
fucking
it's
dick.
like he
yeah,
could have worked with them on
and
an
Yeah.
amicable solution.
and I feel like this movie kind of has weird like so they going back to the lawyer scene. The lawyer works for Voight, so she knows a little bit more about the. That's why they go see her because she knows a little bit more. So they go talk to her, and then she kind of answers a few of their questions, and then they leave, and then the Serena girl is like, or no, they ask her a bunch of questions, and then Riley like goes back to the car, and she's like, but why was she working for Voight, and where is Voight, and like what happened, what's this puzzle box, and where did he get it? And it's like those are questions you should have asked the lawyer like 10 minutes
Yeah.
ago. Why are you not asking the boyfriend outside the lawyer's office? And it's
Right.
just kind of like they wanted to get that information across, and they didn't want it to have an answer, but why not like have the ask the lawyer, and then she's like, oh, I can't talk about it, like there's that cool scene in the new Candyman where the guy tries to even mention Candyman, and the person who lives in the house is like, no, like don't even say his name. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that adds a level of freakiness to it because it's like these normal people are even so scared to say anything about Candyman, like to
Yeah.
even say his name. And I feel like this movie needed it, and also I would believe it in this movie because of how
Right.
terrifying the Cenobites are.
It's so
Right.
horrifying.
Yeah,
When the lawyer does get stabbed, and obviously the Cenobites come get her. At one point, I was like, man, I would have just killed myself the second that happened. Be like,
yeah,
No.
I don't know if I'm still going to hell like after this, but I'm taking the chance.
yeah.
You
Like
know.
I'll see you guys down there.
Yeah. I've seen what you can do.
I'm not gonna let you chase me through halls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, and also again, I'm just looking at my notes. We've covered everything, but like when they kill the roommate, and she's like screaming, and then Pinhead tells her, "Save your breath for," or no, she's talking to him, and he says, or she says, "Save your breath for screaming." And I was like, yeah, I like the one-liners from Pinhead.
Yeah.
They're very much in line because like there's that famous line from the one of the Hellraisers where he says like, oh, save your, or like, I only want you to scream. Or no, he says, you're wasting your screams when there's so much more suffering to do, And so they
Yeah.
kind of kept that way of Hellraiser talking that I
Yeah.
really liked. And they
And the
also,
throat shot was cool too.
yeah,
Like when like the needle go through like the actual like airway was like
right.
I don't know. I thought that was pretty badass too.
No, yeah, I really liked that scene. That was anytime the Cenobites came out, I really liked everything that was happening.
Yeah, it definitely had a lot like going for it. Like
Yeah.
the mood was good and the scares when they were scary were pretty good. The violence was cool. But yeah, just the story itself left a little bit to be desired, but when it was good, it was like pretty tip top.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
good scenes.
And I
Yeah.
would say, like, again, I always refer to these movies kind of as first draft movies, where, like, when I read a first draft, sometimes I'll show it to, like, even the two people on screen right now, and they'll be like, hey, there's a giant plot hole in the middle of this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, shit. Because you're, like, especially once you start getting into it, you just start writing, and then you miss stuff that you'll eventually cover. And I feel like this is how that, like, if this movie had one more draft where they looked at all the kind of problems with it, and at
Mhm.
least address them, even if they didn't fix them, I think it would have been like immensely better.
Yeah.
And it's kind of disappointing because like they brought back the music, which I'm glad that movies are doing that again, where they're bringing back the iconic scores, and they updated it too, which is even better. And like so, it's clearly from people who love the franchise, and
Yeah.
like Jamie Clayton as Pinhead is amazing. Like she did great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
Super scary.
definitely.
yeah, and it's one of those things where like Pinhead isn't a character that like that has a gender assigned to him. Like any gender can play Pinhead because he's just like this otherworldly being that does whatever he wants, you know.
Yeah.
And I think like yeah, I think it just falls into a lot of the traps that a lot of the sequels fall into because like again in the original there's not they don't even beat Pinhead. She just like makes a deal with him, and the deal is to get her uncle back because he's escaped. And then she does that, and then Pinhead's like, "Okay, deal's good. I'll see you later." And so it kind of makes them even more terrifying. It's like, oh yeah, if they wanted to stop you, they're gonna stop you. Like
Yeah.
the only way to beat them is to make a deal with them. Where in this one, it kind of like I mean they don't really beat them, but it just kind of feels like the end felt like a very actiony. Like oh now they're all in this house and they're like running down corridors and like stabbing them, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely like more slasher esque with like kind of the
Yeah.
rules of like now someone else has to die, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think like it just needed one more run through. But I mean, even how it is, I think it was pretty entertaining. It's like a good Halloween movie because it's sleek and
Yeah.
it has like cool locations and cool sequences. It is a little too long, but
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little long.
Could have been a good hour 40 in there, you know?
yeah, it also is crazy how much the ending is just like a little tiny remake of 13 Ghosts.
Yeah. What happens at the end of
See,
13 Ghosts? I
Well,
remember.
just like it's where like the maze comes together and they all like meet in the middle and then they all like grab them and take them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
It's a weird thing to take influence from. Like
yeah.
anytime.
And like not just influence from, but influence from the house. Like the
I
weirdest
know. I
part of
know.
that.
I
yeah,
rewatched it
I
like
did not
not that long
expect the
ago,
trap
and it feels like a Saturday
house.
morning cartoon almost. Like it's like
Yeah.
so like not scary except for the monsters, kind of.
Yeah. 13 Goes is fun because like it does, especially with Matthew Lillard, it feels like an adult Scooby Doo, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And then they do that thing I love where they kill one of the like the best character, but then he comes back as a ghost, and it's like, just
Oh
kidding,
yeah.
I'm here. You know?
Hi.
Now, like in House on Haunted Hill with
Yeah,
Chris
House on Haunted Hill
Kattan.
does the same
Yeah.
thing, which is always fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think it's worth a watch. If you haven't seen The Night House, I would definitely recommend that one.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that one was cool. I like Rebecca Hall is amazing and everything,
Yeah,
but
yeah, she's an asset for sure.
yeah. And so, yeah, and just like I mean, I've watched all of the Hellraisers, so I'm not gonna miss out on a Hellraiser. But
Are there really like 10?
yeah, there's a bunch, and there's so many that there's even two that they made just to keep their rights, and like one of them was like it was like it's a found footage movie for half of it, and yeah, it's
Whoa.
bad.
That's
Yeah,
yeah, they're trying. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the worst one?
that one I just
Yeah.
mentioned. I don't know what the name
Oh,
is, but then it's funny because the one after that is actually pretty interesting. It doesn't have Doug Bradley, who's amazing. It has like some random dude. Um, and it's like it's interesting because it takes place like in the bureaucracy of hell and heaven, which I've never seen before. And there's like a third fraction that's going to war with the Cenobites because they want to take over hell. And then there's like an angel who's like trying to make deals with both sides, but who's the most evil person. And
Whoa.
maybe we'll cover it because it's
I
very
was gonna say that's
interesting
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's very underrated. Like, and I think people didn't like it, which again, I didn't. I mean, I said Jamie Clayton does a good job, but it's also smart from a marketing standpoint because the main problem with that one and with even with the found footage one is if you see a man as Pinhead, you want that man to be Bradley or Doug Bradley, you know. But
Yeah.
with this one, since it was a completely different gender, I didn't have that idea of like, oh, I wish this was Doug Bradley. I was just kind of like trying to see how Jamie Clayton was gonna bring herself to the role. And
Yeah.
so
Kind
I
of
think
bring
that,
slate.
mhm.
Yeah.
Like, and I think you
Yeah,
can
and
really,
that
because
works. I think
Yeah.
she like worked really well in it.
yeah,
Like,
I think so.
yeah, definitely
And
the
I,
strongest part.
and it's kind of the perfect one because you can't really like Candyman and like Freddy kind of have to be guys just because of their backstory. But this one, like I said, it doesn't have to be, and I think it was smart to not do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's worth a watch. I think it was
Yeah.
fun. I think it's a good movie. So
Yeah.
yeah, So Hellraiser 2022, we give it a thumbs up,
Yeah, check it out.
and eventually we'll cover more Hellraisers.
Yeah,
Um,
the one.
yeah, that one, and then probably a bad one just to have fun with.
Maybe will we cover the one where Pinhead is like his backstory is a World War II pilot? Because
No,
I've
but
seen
we
part of that one, and it
maybe we'll
wasn't
cover the
great.
one that has Henry Cavill, and it also takes place on the internet from 19 from the 90s. So you know
Oh,
that
I
it's
love '90s
What?
internet. Yeah. I was looking at this one because that's why I was surprised there's so many Hellraisers because this one they said they started trying to do this in 2007 and it took like a decade because they kept like shifting like rights and who was like
Oh,
involved.
damn.
I was like maybe that's why it kind of feels like an early 2010 movie because it was
I could see
written
it.
like
Oh, yeah.
around that time. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
So
absolutely.
and it is that
Holy
thing. Like,
shit.
I'm glad that this isn't a straight remake of the original, but I did like. I mean, I've thought about this because I love the franchise, but I do like if they were like Andrew, we want you to make Hellraiser. I wouldn't know where to go with it because writing a demon that's from an alternate dimension who like doesn't really understand that pleasure and pain shouldn't be completely like identical. That's a hard that's a hard thing to write. So I understand why people
Yeah.
don't do it. Um, but yeah, it's a hard thing to write unless there's some kind of empty space. Hint, hint. But yeah, so like I kind of like appreciate that they didn't go like with the easy route and just make a remake of the original. And they
Yeah.
did try to do their own thing. So yeah, I think overall it's at least worth a watch, especially because it's on Hulu. Like, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, cool. So of course we're in our Halloween times, and this is going out today, so enjoy it. But
Yeah.
we'll be back next week with more fun. I think next week actually we're doing Blair Witch, but then
Oh,
after
cool.
that we'll do another cool one. Um, but yeah, we'll see you guys, and welcome back to the Bomb Squad. Thanks for watching the Bomb Squad. Please, while you're here, give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it, and it means a lot.